Alright, good morning, and welcome to Levels Plus Weekly. We've got this guy feeling compelled to let himself be announced. I'm not sure what he wants, so he'll probably just be commenting in the background, like a good co-host. Ah! Yeah. So to start this week's video, I thought it would be kind of fun to look over what I've done for my holiday decorating for my game shelf. So this is something I do every year, is incorporate all of my holiday decorations with my video game stuff. And I'm particularly happy with what I've done this year. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom a little bit closer. So I've got my stocking here, as well as an ornament that a friend made for me a few years ago, and my Advent slotting ornament thing. I don't really know what to call it. It is an Advent calendar. In fact, I need to show how it works, because it is the 5th today. So you just take it like that, and then you plop it where you want it. I've had this stocking, oh boy, over 25 years, I want to say. I bought it at a craft fair where I used to live when I was a child, and whoever made it, they did a good job, because it's still here. It still looks almost as good as it did when I bought it. So up here at the top, I've got my primary display. And I guess the nice thing about having a bunch of collector's edition boxes and holding onto your mini console boxes is that it looks great when you're trying to do holiday themed decorations. I'm pretty pleased with how it looks up here. There's a few snow globes. I've got a tree that's got a bunch of ornaments on it. But it really feels festive up here. Like there's a bunch of gifts and everyone's happy, and I've even got Charles Dickens himself. I won that for a contest in my Victorian Voices class at UC Merced. The book I'm literally about to publish, not First Frequent Fantasy, not Famicom, but Zenobia, comes from that class. This is a very brief interlude, but yes, I have another book that's not video game related at all. That's going to be published soon. So I'll go ahead and do a real quick pop of it. It's called Zenobia. It is a poem by a working class Victorian poet named Ruth Wills. And I have done the book design, the illustrations, and some supplemental text to the poem. I'll go ahead and switch over to the digital file in just 1 second so you can get a little preview. But this is the cover. I'm super happy with it. I love how this looks. So this is the title page, and I'm doing all the internal illustrations, save the one for the preface, which is the same as the painting on the cover. I'm really happy with how this worked out. This is something I put together really quick during Thanksgiving. So here's the preface page. I just got this idea that I did this project when I was at UC Merced, and it was designed to be a really fancy book, and I was like, well, why am I not publishing this? So this is what the poem looks like. So it's got this illustration on the left, and then the lines on the right. There's 12 sets of lines. I'm not going to show the whole book, but I'll go ahead and do one more section. So this art is art I did in 2014 when I did the original assignment. I really like this art. I think it's really reflective of my art getting better and better at the time. So I didn't want to update it, but I'm very excited about this book. It's going to be going up on Amazon very soon. Over here was actually the hardest part. I had a bunch more stuff over here, but it kept falling over, and unfortunately I have a laundry unit hiding out right here. So every time I do laundry, it just shakes this unit and knocks stuff over, so I had to pare that down. Here is one of my snow globes, and then you can kind of see some ornaments and stuff that are just hanging out up there, as well as some of the gifts that are being given away. And then this is a tree made out of shells. I bought that a year or two ago. I thought it was kind of a cool idea. And then there's just a stocking, more ornaments. There's a snow globe I won at my, what do they call it? An ornament exchange a couple years ago. And then there's a lot of Celeste stuff up here because it takes place on a snowy mountain, so it just seems appropriate to have Madeline battling the strawberry and all the collector's edition stuff practically up here. This one's not as decorated. There are some snow globes and ornaments and holiday card box hanging out in the background. I really like these boxes. Actually, they're from the Peter Popper Press, which they don't really publish a whole lot of books anymore. But they used to make really nice editions, not too far off from the books I collect. And I think that they even worked with the George Macy Company a few times to make books. The ornaments here are mostly from my grandparents when I was younger. I can't really get too in there. There's not many of the painted ones in here, and the one that's hanging out there is kind of hard to see. I can attempt to turn it, hopefully not make a horrible noise. There we go, that's a little bit better. And then I got these coasters from a coworker, I think last year. And there's 4 of them, they're just kind of scattered throughout. And then on this side, got more snow globes. This is probably my favorite snow globe. I got that one in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. And then when I was younger, I had a big thing with Garfield. I collected a whole bunch of Garfield merch and stuff. That is no longer the case, but I do have an ornament in here with Garfield and Odie on it. And then there's another one that was custom painted hanging out behind Ken there. And then this is another box by the Peter Popper Press. And then down here I've got these woodcuts. I think the same friend that made the pine cone ornament got both of these for me. I don't remember for sure. Hi! You know, you can't really sharpen your claws on that, bud. But you can be in the video. Yes. Yeah, you sure can. This one is a more recent one. I think I got this one a year or 2 ago. And then she also made this for me a few years ago. She's very crafty. And she also ended up buying this little charm off of an Etsy store. I don't remember which one. And then this is the other wood cut ornament that I have. But yeah, that is my holiday decorations. I decided not to do any lights this year, save some energy. You know, I'm home all the time, and I work from home, and so there is a little additional energy cost having my work PC on all the time and just being here. So I decided that I'm just going to reduce my energy a little bit, reduce my carbon footprint, and not have the holiday lights. But I like what I did this year. I'm very happy with it. Part 2, where I don't know what I'm talking about. My original plan was to be doing Age of Calamity discussion, but I feel like I haven't got very far in that game. I haven't really been in much of a gameplay mood the last couple weeks, so I think I'm gonna bench that for now. It would make me happy to have games that continue to appeal to my personal taste. I would love for Elevator Action Returns more than anything else to get an arcade archive, or in like Wild Dreams Land, or Tango Project, the creators of Wild Guns Reloaded and the Ninja Saviors, Return of the Warriors. Masterful remakes of those Super Nintendo games to take Elevator Action Returns under their wing and give it the love and craft that I know that they could do. Even though they didn't make it, I think that they would still deliver the content in a way that it not only represents the original work in a high quality sheen, but it enhances that experience to be that much better. That's what they've done. The new Kiki Kakai game that they're working on is like one of my most anticipated games for next year because they do good work. And I use Elevator Action Returns because I think it's a really good example of that fan desire. That because it's not a huge game, not many people know of it. In contrast to its earlier arcade original, that's the one that people know. That's the one that Taito decided to come back to for Elevator Action Deluxe instead of Elevator Action Returns, which is a much better game. But I understand that Taito and Square Enix, since they own Taito, Elevator Action is probably not that high up. I mean, they've released the original, that's the one people wanted to know. So when they work with Hamster to re-release Taito games, it's not something that I think is immediately thought of, and that's okay. The thing that I was thinking about earlier today when I was thinking about something to talk about was I think that we need to remember as fans of something in the gaming sphere that these are all companies doing business first and foremost. They do cater to fan desire and requests and reactions and things like that, but they are not beholden to the fans. We as fans are beholden to them, and I think that's the part that really is important to keep in mind, is that as people who play games, we have to buy games from these companies in order to try to show something to them so they might make the thing we want. And that it's not a great system because there's no way to really have proper say in that dynamic without spending money. And it's very capitalist. And that's just the nature of the game industry. It's all about you, the player, paying money to the company for things in the hopes that you will get what you want out of it. That's just what it is. It's a product. I think that games transcend the mere definition of product because they are cultural artifacts. They represent a particular societal understanding of the time, all the way back to the very first game to the ones that are being made now. You can see how culture has shifted since the 1970s, late 1960s, when the first electronic video games were being produced, to what we have now. And what we see now is just to get the full product of something, you have to pay beyond what you initially would for like 90% of games that are definitely in the AAA space. And that's just the nature of how this relationship has been, how this dynamic works. We as players want to play games, so we have to buy them, and then we discover that we like something, so we have to continue buying other things for the company to maybe come back around and make the thing we want them to make. And it just won't happen that way, because that's not, it's all about hope. It's all about wanting something so badly that you will support things that perhaps you might not ordinarily do in the hopes that it'll translate to the thing that you want. And you know, I mean, it's not a great system, as I've said. It's definitely in favor of the companies, of the IP owners. My hope is that if I support Taito games on Arcade Archives, that eventually they will continue to license games from Taito and get elevator action returns. That's kind of the as my placement as a consumer of these products, that's what my voice is. And we've had that problem before. We've had that problem with like Mega Man Legends 3, where Capcom tried to twist the business model and make fans more of a part of the creation process. And that backfired, and the game was canceled. And there's still a very vocal group of people that have not forgiven Capcom for doing that. And it was... I don't know all the background. I don't know exactly why things shook out the way they did. I imagine that Keiji Inafune leaving the company at that point in time, shortly after the announcement of the project, and basically abandoning it, it probably did to help its odds any. And I think that following that, Capcom really needed to kind of stop and pause and figure out, well, what do we want Mega Man to be? And then it just took some time for them to get around to making Mega Man 11, which I heard was pretty good. I haven't got around to playing it yet. The demo was fine. But I think that's just the nature of the fan/business relationship, is that it's always going to spin around money. It's going to spin around purchasing items. You do occasionally get things that try to break out of that system. And I think that's what Kickstarter's trying to do with some of the games that have been created. There's been some successes, like with... I think Bloodstained Ritual of the Night was mostly a success. The biggest issue that it really had was the Switch port being really, really rough at first, but it's a lot better now. But they probably should have sat on it longer instead of releasing it in the state that initially came out. I still loved it. I have the ability to overlook technical problems as long as I'm having fun and enjoying myself. See in point, the XCOM 2 collection on Switch. Same situation there. I love the gameplay so much that I can overlook all the technical problems. And Bloodstained was a lot of the same thing. It was like, I was just so happy to play a new Castlevania style action-adventure game that I was able to look past a lot of the technical problems, the smeary visuals, and the frame rate problems in certain areas, and the extremely long load times in one area that were really, really bad. Because I was having fun. It was an experience that I really enjoyed getting to have again. From one of the people that really kind of pioneered that genre. And then like Yoiden Chronicles, from a lot of the people that made Suikoden. That's the first Kickstarter, probably the only Kickstarter I've ever backed, because I really love Suikoden and Suikoden 2. They're both on my top 111. Suikoden 2's in the top 50. Those are marvelous games that are still very unique in the JRPG canon, and I want to have another one, even if it doesn't say Suikoden on the cover. And the fact that they've got one of my favorite composers, Chico Naruke, I'm pretty sure that's right. I hope I'm not wrong. I'm not looking at it. That's the problem with doing these videos off the cuff like this, is that I don't do research before I start talking. Anyway, she's one of my favorite composers, and she's one of the primary composers for this. That was almost reason enough for me to go, ooh, Suikoden with Naruke, I am in. Plus, I love the art design already, and what we've seen of concept work looks great. It was something that I was willing to back. at a decent tier. I mean, I love the art, and I'm gonna probably love the music, I hope. So that's what I got, is I got the art book and I got the soundtrack. And my hope is that it will live up to the expectations that I have for Suikoden, as a spiritual successor to that. And I think that that's kind of where we're at, is that we are at a place where we have IP companies holding these IPs, like Konami, for instance, that are just sitting on a treasure trove of iconic franchises that they've come up with over the years, and most of them you don't see anything of. Where's Blades of Steel on the NES Switch Online app? I mean, that would be the perfect game to have on there because you have online play. You can actually play against another person. We have Castlevania Anniversary Collection, but there's dozens of Castlevania games that weren't included in that collection that are not on the Switch, and only 2 of them are on like PlayStation 4, which is Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood, and they're based on the PSP port instead of the originals, so they are different than what was originally released. So it's a complicated topic, this like what we as fans, what we as people who play games want, and what the companies want. What the companies want is money. What the companies want is a bottom line. And what we want is nostalgia. What we want is things that have made us happy before, that we want to either relive in a remake, a remaster, or a port, or we want more of. So we want a sequel, or a prequel, or something to continue that franchise's history. And unfortunately, the way that this industry works, it doesn't always translate to those 2 crossing. And in more cases than not, it really does depend on the whimsy of the company and what they want to do. None of them are perfect. None of them are looking out for what their fans actually want. They are making educated guesses and assumptions and hypotheses based on data and based on, I think, a mild amount of what they perceive through social media having a mild influence on some decisions. But when it comes to a lot of these companies, they're based in Japan. They have Western branches, but the Western branches, while they are focusing on what the Western fans are demanding, it doesn't always fall on open ears when it comes from the Western office to the Japanese main branch. It's a complicated dynamic, and it's something that I think as we continue on, we're going to continue to see more spiritual successors, maybe not through Kickstarter, but through other like indie projects, through companies forming themselves and finding ways to raise capital to make the games like they used to, but just without the IP anymore. And I'm okay with that. You know, I think this topic is something I could flesh out more in a future video about, you know, keep the relevance of old games and keeping them current in the minds of players, making them available. I think that's a topic for another time. Well, thank you for watching Levels Plus Weekly, episode 4. Definitely a bit of a very off-the-cuff episode, but sometimes that's kind of fun. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me talk, and we'll see you next week.